Hello, welcome back. This is part two. It's going to be a pretty quick one. I'm just going to go over getting set up with Blender and Fast64 and then doing a quick test to make sure everything works. So first thing you're going to need obviously is Blender. You can get this from blender.org in the downloads. Currently using version 3.6.5. The Fast64 team is pretty good about keeping up to date with the latest Blender version, but if there was Blender version that just came out like a week ago, like say 3.7 comes out and you want to use that right after it comes out, maybe a good idea to wait a little bit to give them time to update the add-on for compatibility. So go ahead and download that 3.6 and you should get a screen that looks like this. Installing add-ons is super simple. It's going to go to, I'll put a link to this in the description. Go to the Fast64 GitHub page, and we're going to do the same thing to download this repository like we did with the Decomp repository. Click on this code button, and then download the repo as a zip file. Wait for that to finish. And installing add-ons is extremely easy in Blender. You're going to go up here to Edit, and then Preferences. And in this selection on the navigation pane on the left, click on Add-ons, and then Install. Go to your downloads, and you'll have this fast64.main. That's the file that we just downloaded. Install add-on. And to actually turn it on, you want to click this box, this little checkbox. Enable. Oops, I've got this filtered. Yes, if you don't see it in there, you can use this filter. Just type fast, and you'll see it. There we go. Now that is installed, there are a couple things that we need to do to set up the add-on. So if you hit N on your keyboard, you can open up this panel on the right side. I'm going to go down here to Fast64. And first thing to do is change the game. We're not going to be doing Super Mario 64. We're doing Ocarina of Time. And that will set up some other things behind the scenes, as well as change this other tab. You'll see this guy right here now says OoT. So I'll click on that. First important thing that we need to do is set up our decomp path. And this is going to be the absolute path to the repository on your file system. And it's super easy to get that. If we go back to Ubuntu, here I am in my in the directory for the repository where I was running all the make commands and things like that last time. I'm just going to type in explorer.exe space period. And that will open up Windows Explorer. Open up mine on another monitor. And you can click here in the top, grab this path, copy that, Control C, and then back in decomp path, paste that. And let me expand that out. So you should be good to go. It's going to be some kind of strange path with this WSL $ Ubuntu, but if it looks like that, you're doing good. All right, let's import a scene and make a basic edit to it and make sure it still works. So let's, if you click on the scene exporter here, there's also a scene import tool underneath that. We're not going to do the Deku tree. We're going to do Gerudo Training Ground. Here we go, Gerudo Training Ground. We're going to import everything from this, and then just click import. This will take a minute. Cool, there we go. Now, initially, everything may look like just white, like it didn't import correctly. This is because the view mode needs to change up here. So in the top right, this viewport shading, click on this third one, which is a render preview. And it'll take a second once you click on it. Fast64 is going to be compiling all of the materials into shaders so that they render properly. And it still doesn't look right, but that's because this like strange transparent highlight that we have on it is actually the collision for the scene. So I'm just going to hide that. I can click on it here, expand in the hierarchy. This empty. I'll go over the Blender hierarchy and how the Fast64 empties work and things like that in the next video, most likely. But for now, just expand this. Look for Men Collision. Men is the internal name for this scene. Why it is that, I don't know. And then we can just push H to hide that. And now we've got the full scene. So let me, I'm gonna make a couple more changes. I like to hide the floor. So if you click on Viewport Overlays, hit the arrow down here, you can toggle off the floor. And now we can kind of fly around and walk through the scene if we want to. see how everything is set up, all the different rooms. Looking good. So you'll see there are definitely things missing in the scene. There are no doors, for example. Here in the first room, there's no torches, no chests, things like that. That's because all of those elements in the scene are a different type called actors. And I'll explain this more in the next video, but just know that the scenes are kind of really broken down into two main pieces. You have kind of the background geometry, which is all the walls, the floors, the pillars, the platforms, things like that. And then anything that moves or interacts with in some way, that's going to be an actor. So that's why it looks a little empty. So let's go ahead and make a quick change to this scene and then re-export it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this box right here, which is the torch object Syokudai. I'm just going to duplicate that with Shift D, and then I'm going to move it around to right here. And that's going to put it in the middle of the room, which is not exactly what I want. So one option, if I want to be more exact, what I can do is up here in the snapping, I've got this magnet. I can change this from increment to vertex to edge or face. So I'll change this to face for now. And that will let me, when I'm moving this thing, if I push G on my keyboard, that lets me go into move mode. I can also turn on some additional tools. I don't really use these object gizmos, but you can turn on, I think, like move, yeah. And you can drag with the arrows and things like that. But I like to just use the hotkeys, which are G. And you can see down here on the I've got the screencast keys turned on, see which keys I'm pressing. So I'll push G to move that, and then I'll hold Control down, and that's going to turn on face project mode, or sorry, not face project. That's going to turn on the magnet snapping mode to face project. So let me position my camera in a way that I'm not I'm actually able to get inside the scene right here. I'll push G, and then I'll push Z, and that will lock the movement to the Z axis. Then I'll hit Control, and that's going to snap it down to the face, so I can put it exactly at the same coordinate as the floor, and then click. There, now we've added essentially just another torch into this scene, although I don't want it to be a torch, so I'm going to hit F2 and rename this. The name doesn't matter, this is just for your own organization. This is going to be like actor, let's add a Dekubaba, actor Dekubaba. And the way to actually turn this into a Dekubaba is over here in the object properties. We're going to see this object type is actor. You can select actor ID here and then start typing Baba. First result should be Dekubaba. And for the actor parameter, don't worry about this for now. Just know that I'm going to set this to all zeros. I'll talk about actor parameters in a future video. And let's now export our scene. We want to make sure we export into the same scene that we imported. So we're not going to be exporting into inside the Deku tree. Click this magnifying glass. Type in training, Gerudo training ground. This is the one that we're going to want to export. And this is also very important. Make sure you click this button, export as single file. I don't know why this isn't the default in Fast64. If you don't click this, it's not going to work. I don't know why it's an option. I think they need to remove that and just have this be the default. But make sure this export single file is clicked and you're exporting into Gerudo training ground. Go ahead and click export scene. That'll take just a minute. Okay, looks like we're all finished. Now let's build the project and go in and see if our Dekubaba is in the scene. So I'm going to do make J8 just like before. And then we can open up Project 64. Now I'm going to use the debug map select, which is a feature of the debug ROM, in order to get to the scene that we want. Let me make sure this is getting captured properly. There we go. So if you're sitting at the title screen, you hit L, R, and Z, it'll bring up the map select. And a lot of these names are in Japanese. If you want to know the English name for them, you can actually find it in the source code itself. So back in Visual Studio Code, I'm gonna hit Control P to search for a file, and I want Z_select. This is the file for the map select debug screen. And as you scroll down this file a little bit, you'll see this S scenes variable. This stores the big array of all of the different scenes for the selects. And there's a comment in English for what each of these scenes are. So I'm going to look for Gerudo training area. Here, it's called Gerudo training area. So this is 65. If you want, you can like change the actual display here. So why don't I go ahead and do that? I want this to be 65 Gerudo training area. I'm just going to copy this and replace this whole string with just 65 Gerudo training area. I'll save that. And let me close project 64 and rebuild my ROM. Open that back up. And again, LR plus Z, that'll take you into the map select, and then you can use D-pad up and down to scroll through this list. We're gonna find 65 Gerudo training area, that's the one we want. And if you push whatever you have bound to the B button, it'll change the age. So you can see I'm pressing it right here. You'll also see in the bottom right, the input display is saying that I'm pressing the B button. You can change from child link to adult. 17, age 17 is adult link, 5 is child. And then load in with A. You can still see we've got our black tunic. And there's the Deku Baba that we added. So everything looks good there. If you're hitting that button combo LR plus Z and it's not working, you'll want to make sure that you've got controller 2 plugged in. So in options in Fast64, go down here to input settings. This is your keybinds for your main controller. For controller 2, just make sure this checkbox is ticked, that it's actually plugged in, because a lot of the debug features only work if there is an actual controller plugged into that controller 2 port. Why that is, not sure, but that's just the way it is. Cool. And that's going to be it for this video. Like I said, I'll go over more of the specifics and details about all of the parts in the scene. This was just a quick test to make sure that you've got the Fast64 add-on installed and working correctly. And I'll see you in the next one.